The Justice Department releasing millions of new pages of documents from the Epstein files, and among them is a list.
You see the new lawsuit coming with Jay, the part with Jay. I go, oh shoot, like, I think about it, I go, that had to be there. So when I was saying that he was missing.
Stop scrolling and check your timeline pulse, because this right here is the kind of industry plot twist that makes group chats malfunction. 50 Cent just casually tossed a statement into the internet like a lit match in a fireworks warehouse. Netflix wants him to do a Jay-Z documentary next. Yes, that sentence alone just made 1,000 executives spill their coffee and at least 3 bloggers forget how punctuation works. This isn't regular hip-hop news. This is cinematic chaos with a business suit on. When one of rap's most strategic trolls, master marketers, and professional button pushers says a streaming giant is calling about a Jay-Z documentary. That's not tea, that's a pressure cooker with a microphone. The internet didn't react. It performed gymnastics. Fans are excited. Critics are suspicious. Conspiracy theorists are stretching like Olympic athletes. And neutral observers? They're grabbing popcorn like this is a season finale directed by pure mess. Because when 50 talks projects, history says one thing, noise follows. Headlines multiply. And somebody somewhere gets uncomfortable. And if you think that was the shock, wait until you see how fast this turned into a full-blown narrative war. The moment that statement hit the internet, it didn't land softly, it landed like a bass drop in a quiet library. 50 Cent saying Netflix wants him to do a Jay-Z documentary didn't feel like a normal comment. It felt like somebody slid a confidential folder across a boardroom table and accidentally live-streamed it. No build-up, no warning, just boom, narrative turbulence activated. Timelines froze, then sprinted. Because when a headline includes 50 Cent, Netflix, and Jay-Z in the same sentence, the algorithm doesn't just wake up, it does jumping jacks. Let's be clear about one thing. 50 Cent does not speak publicly about media projects the way normal humans order lunch. He speaks like a chess player who already sees 8 moves ahead and packed snacks. Every sentence sounds optional but somehow strategic. That's why this reveal didn't feel random. It felt placed. Like a domino with a camera crew. The background tension makes this even louder. These are not strangers in separate lanes. This is history, competition, legacy, ego, empire, and long memory energy all sharing the same headline. The culture knows. There's layered history here. So when the idea of a documentary enters the chat, not just any documentary, but a Netflix level 1 people don't hear film project, they hear narrative control. And narrative control in hip-hop is like oxygen in space. Everybody wants it. Nobody shares it easily. Within minutes, reaction channels multiplied like clones. Titles popped up screaming about exposure, truth, secrets, and what this really means. Apparently, everyone suddenly has a cousin who works near a streaming office. Amazing how insider sources appear exactly when views are available. Miraculous timing. Truly scientific. Supporters frame the idea as legendary television waiting to happen. They called it explosive, historic, must-watch, culture-shifting. Critics raised eyebrows so high they needed altitude masks. They questioned motive, tone, angle, and intention. Because let's be honest, if 50 is involved, nobody expects a sleepy, polite, museum-style documentary with soft piano music and balanced compliments. They expect sharp edges, dramatic framing, and at least 3 moments that make social media throw chairs. Sarcasm online reached championship level. One viral comment said this would be less a documentary and more a lyrical crime scene investigation with surround sound. Another said if this happens, the interview chairs need seatbelts. The meme pages immediately mocked up fake documentary. Posters with dramatic lighting and titles like Power, the Boardroom Edition. Comedy wasted 0 seconds. Industry watchers started reading between every invisible line. Some said this signals a new era of artist-driven documentaries where rivals tell the story instead of friends. Others said it's just early talk turned into loud talk by the internet echo chamber. Both sides spoke with full confidence and partial evidence. The official language of online debate. The Netflix angle added rocket fuel. Streaming platforms aren't viewed like studios anymore. They're viewed like cultural megaphones. A story told there doesn't just air, it imprints. So the question quickly shifted from is this real to if it's real, how raw would it be? Because platform plus personality equals amplified consequence. Then came the timeline archaeologists. Old interviews resurfaced. Old quotes got reposted. Old competitive moments were clipped and circulated like historical trailers. Context got stretched, condensed, flipped, and seasoned. The past never stays past when a new headline appears. It gets remastered. What makes this situation especially electric is brand contrast. Jay-Z's public image has long been associated with polish, strategy, executive composure, legacy architecture. 50 Cent's public persona is associated with confrontation, blunt humor, strategic trolling, and zero fear of discomfort. Put those energies in one documentary concept, and people don't expect calm. They expect combustion, conversation. Threads turned into debate tournaments. Would it be respectful or ruthless? Balanced or blazing? Tribute or teardown? Nobody knows, but everybody argues like they attended the planning meeting personally. Certainty is always in stock online. Another layer of intrigue is power dynamics. When a major platform allegedly approaches a figure known for unfiltered commentary to cover another giant figure, people smell drama potential like sharks smell motion. It doesn't guarantee chaos, but it guarantees attention. And attention is the most traded currency in modern media. What really locked viewers in was the unpredictability factor. With some producers, you can predict tone. With 50 involved, prediction feels like guessing weather on another planet. He doesn't just tell stories, he frames them like boxing matches with commercial breaks. By now, the noise level had doubled, then doubled again. But this was still just the opening tremor. Because once celebrity reactions, indirect responses, and meme warfare joined the conversation, the temperature didn't rise, it boiled. The second shockwave didn't arrive politely. It burst through the wall wearing steel boots and a microphone. Because once that 50 Cent Netflix Jay-Z documentary idea started circulating at full volume, the reaction machine didn't just turn on, it overclocked. This stopped being a headline and became a cultural argument with Wi-Fi and caffeine. The internet didn't discuss it. It divided over it like a pizza topping. Debate with legal consequences. Celebrity-adjacent voices started circling the topic with those carefully crafted, suspiciously vague posts. You know the type. Some stories depend on who tells them. No names, no tags, but maximum side-eye. Social media doesn't need direct references. It assigns targets automatically. Within minutes, screenshots flew, arrows were drawn, and entire theories were built on punctuation choices. Hip-hop commentary channels went into emergency programming mode. Uploads multiplied like rabbits at a math convention. Everybody had a breakdown, a prediction, what this really means, and a thumbnail face frozen in artificial shock. According to half the internet, this documentary would either rewrite history or start a civil war at the barbershop. Meme culture reached elite form again. Fake Netflix preview screens started circulating with dramatic taglines like Legacy Under Fire and Boardroom Wars. Edited trailers appeared with thunder sound effects and slow-motion walking clips. One meme showed a director's chair, labeled narrative control, and two people sprinting toward it. Subtle? No. Effective? Extremely. The funniest part is how quickly people formed absolute conclusions about a project that may not even have a confirmed green light. That's internet science. Hypothesis first, evidence later, confidence always. Some declared it a guaranteed truth bomb series. Others declared it a guaranteed hit job. Nobody declared it possibly nuanced. Nuance gets terrible engagement. Industry, analysts, the self-appointed ones and the real ones, started debating motive like courtroom attorneys. One side argued this would be pure ratings genius. Conflict sells, contrast sells, curiosity sells. The other side argued it would be reputational dynamite with a short fuse. Because when storyteller and subject have competitive history, neutrality becomes a rumor. Pop culture comparisons got outrageous fast. People said letting 50 Cent lead a Jay-Z documentary would be like asking a rival chef to judge your signature. Dish on Love TV with no editing. Others compared it to letting a former opponent narrate your highlight reel. Dramatic? Yes. Shared thousands of times? Also yes, exaggeration is the internet's favorite protein powder. Fan bases entered the arena. Next, and fan bases never arrive quietly. Supporters on both sides defended legacies like family property. Threads turned into digital shouting matches with paragraph-length uppercuts. Caps lock got abused. Exclamation marks filed for workers' comp. Nobody was typing. They were swinging sentences. Reaction live streams became verbal boxing matches of their own. Panel guests talked over each other with championship stamina. Phrases like, "Let me be clear," and "Here's the real issue" were thrown around like folding chairs. Nobody agreed, everybody spoke. Views went up. Conflict is algorithm oxygen. Then came the conspiracy engineers. According to them, this was part of a larger media chessboard involving leverage, timing, catalog power, and cultural positioning. Diagrams were spiritually created. Invisible strings were mapped. When a theory uses the phrase "connect the dots," you know the dots are about to be aggressively rearranged. The Netflix factor kept the pressure high. Streaming platforms are seen as narrative amplifiers, not just distributors. A story placed there doesn't just exist, it echoes. That's why the question kept getting louder. If this happens, whose version becomes the widely accepted one? In media, repetition can feel like truth, even when it's just repetition with a budget. Old interviews resurfaced again like boomerangs with subtitles. Competitive quotes, business disagreements, lyrical shots, all clipped and reposted like historical trailers. Context shrank, impact grew. The past became promotional material whether it volunteered or not. Brand strategists joined the noise with corporate-flavored takes. They talked about image management, legacy positioning, and risk exposure like this was a merger discussion. When hip-hop discourse starts sounding like a shareholder meeting, you know the topic escaped the culture lane and entered the commerce lane? What made the escalation truly explosive was unpredictability math. If a neutral studio produces a documentary, tone is somewhat predictable. If a personality famous for strategic trolling and sharp commentary produces it, unpredictability triples. Audiences don't expect calm narration. They expect narrative jabs between facts. Expectations started building like storm clouds. Not just curiosity, anticipation mixed with anxiety. Because if it happens, it won't be ignored. It will be watched, clipped, debated, and weaponized in comment sections for at least 3 business quarters. And through all this noise, one reality sat quietly doing push-ups. If the project becomes real, the aftermath will be louder then. The announcement. Because storytelling power is influence power, and influence power makes people nervous. The third phase of this media, earthquake, doesn't sound like hype. It sounds like consequence putting on dress shoes. Because once the idea of a 50 Cent produced Jay-Z documentary entered the public bloodstream, the conversation stopped being about curiosity and started being about impact. Not, would this be interesting? But who controls the story if this actually happens? That's when entertainment turns into narrative warfare with better lighting. Here's the uncomfortable truth about documentaries nobody likes to say out loud. They don't just record history, they frame it. Camera angle is opinion with a budget. Editing is emphasis with background music. Interview selection is narrative steering. So when the rumored storyteller is known for strategic blunt force and competitive memory, people don't expect a neutral museum tour. They expect a guided missile with chapter titles. Public perception began drafting 2 completely different future headlines at the same time. In one version, the project becomes a culture-defining deep dive, raw, unfiltered, impossible to ignore, praised for boldness. In the other version, it becomes a controversy magnet, accused of bias, accused of angle, accused of settling invisible scores with cinematic equipment. Same film, opposite reviews depending on who presses play, reputation risk entered. The room carrying a calculator. For major figures, legacy is architecture built over decades. One high-impact documentary can add a new wing or crack a window. That's why narrative ownership is guarded like vault access. When someone else might hold the megaphone, tension naturally rises. Not panic, but posture. Relationship dynamics also become delicate in situations like this. Industry friendships, partnerships, and alliances suddenly get analyzed like stock charts. People start asking who supports what, who stays quiet, who posts cryptic emojis. Silence becomes a statement. Statements become headlines. Headline interpretation becomes a sport. Media outlets would not treat this like a casual release. If it materializes, coverage becomes layered, reviews, counter-reviews, rebuttal interviews, response podcasts. Think less film drop and more conversation storm? Because when two giant reputational brands share a controversial frame, the coverage machine doesn't blink. It feasts. Another twist sits right under the surface. Audience trust. Viewers today don't just watch documentaries, they audit them. They question motive, sourcing, editing choices, omissions. The modern audience comes with fact-check reflexes and bias detectors set to maximum sensitivity. That means any perceived imbalance becomes its own side story instantly. Fan-based psychology guarantees volume. Supporters would defend legacy like a championship belt. Critics would question framing like courtroom lawyers. Debate panels would multiply. Reaction videos would stack. Nobody would whisper. Cultural conversations rarely whisper anyway. They bring microphones. There's also the power of platform factor. A major streaming release doesn't just live, it echoes. Clips get extracted, quotes get looped, moments get memed. A single sharp line can become a year-long caption. Distribution scale turns seconds into symbols. That amplification changes stakes dramatically. Industry creators would also watch closely because this kind of project, if real, resets precedent. Rival-produced storytelling becomes normalized. Competitive narrative becomes mainstream. That opens doors and starts arguments at the same time. Innovation and irritation often share an elevator. The unpredictability factor remains the loudest. Drumbeat underneath everything. With some producers, tone is forecastable. With 50 Cent attached to anything, forecast models break. He doesn't just present stories, he frames them like chess moves with punchlines. That unpredictability is magnetic and terrifying depending on your seat in the arena. And here's the biggest clarity moment in this entire storm. Even the rumor of a project like this proves one thing about modern culture. Storytelling power is now equal to chart power. Control the narrative and you influence the legacy. That's why conversations like this ignite so fast and burn so long. If the documentary never happens, the rumors still expose tension lines. If it does happen, the reaction will be 10 times louder than the speculation. Because once the film exists, interpretation becomes a competitive sport and neutrality becomes an endangered species. The announcement was the spark. The reaction was the wildfire. The potential release would be the thunder. And just like that, we've reached the part of the story where rumors feel like trailers. Reactions feel like episodes, and one sentence from the right person turns the whole internet into a debate arena with Wi-Fi and attitude. A possible 50 Cent-led Jay-Z documentary didn't just start a conversation. It started a cultural tug-of-war with think pieces, memes, hot takes, and emotional damage in the comment sections. This is what happens when legacy media power and personality collide at full speed. Now I'm passing the mic to you. I want your raw, unfiltered take in the comments. Would you watch that documentary day one, hour one? Popcorn ready. Or would you side-eye the whole thing like a suspicious group chat message? Is this genius-level storytelling or chaos with a camera budget? Drop your verdict and defend it. Like closing arguments. No fence-sitting. The algorithm doesn't respect neutrality. If this breakdown hit harder than a surprise headline at 3 a.m., smash that like button like it owes you interest. Subscribe like you just found the control room where all the loud stories get decoded. Turn on notifications so you're not the last one showing up to the next industry explosion asking, wait, when did this happen? Share this with that friend who says, I don't follow industry drama, but somehow has a full documentary opinion before breakfast. Yes, that undercover analyst. Expose them nuzzly. Around here, scandals don't drip, they detonate. Narratives don't stroll, they collide. And fame doesn't float, it's engineered. This is Fame Blueprint, where the stories are built loud and broken down louder.